We all know the names Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer. Their chilling stories have been told time and time again, becoming part of our cultural nightmares. But history is filled with shadows, and in those shadows lurk monsters whose names have been lost to time, yet whose crimes are just as horrifying, if not more so. These are the serial killers you've never heard of. The phantoms who slip through the cracks of history, leaving behind a legacy of terror that remains largely unknown. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on three such figures, whose tales are guaranteed to send a shiver down your spine. Our first journey into the unknown takes us to late 19th century France, to a man named Joseph Vacher. Known as the French Ripper, Vacher was a former soldier discharged for violent and erratic behavior. He wandered the countryside as a vagrant, a lonely figure playing a concertina. But behind this harmless facade was a predator of unimaginable brutality. Between 1894 and 1897, Vacher preyed on isolated farm workers, both men and women, often targeting young shepherds. His method was savage and consistent. He would ambush his victims, inflict horrific mutilations, and then vanish back into the rural landscape. The police were baffled, attributing the scattered killings to local disputes or random acts of violence. They couldn't connect the dots because they couldn't conceive of a single man traveling such vast distances on foot to commit these atrocities. Vacher's spree was one of the first documented cases of what we now call a traveling serial killer. It was his own arrogance that led to his downfall. After being arrested for a minor assault, he began to boast, confessing to over a dozen murders. He claimed an inner voice, or a mad rage, resulting from a dog bite, compelled him to kill. Was he truly insane, or was it a calculated ploy to escape the guillotine? The court didn't buy it. Joseph Vacher was executed in 1898, but his case highlighted the terrifying reality that evil could be mobile, nomadic, and hiding in plain sight. Next, we travel across the globe to early 20th century Japan, a time of great social change. Here we find a woman named Miyuki Ishikawa. She wasn't a vagrant stalking victims. She was a respected midwife and the director of a maternity hospital. In post-war Japan during the 1940s, resources were scarce, and many families were plunged into poverty, unable to care for their children. Abortion was illegal, and social support systems were virtually non-existent. Ishikawa saw an opportunity in this desperation. She began accepting infants from poor parents, promising to find them good homes. The parents, believing they were giving their children a chance at a better life, would pay her a substantial fee. But there were no good homes. Ishikawa, with the help of her husband and a few accomplices, simply neglected the babies. They were denied food, water, and basic care until they perished. It was a cold, calculated, and profit-driven slaughter. The scale of her crimes is what's truly staggering. When authorities finally became suspicious after discovering the remains of 5 infants, their investigation unraveled a nightmare. They estimated that Miyuki Ishikawa was responsible for the deaths of over 100 infants, with some estimates going even higher. The media called her Onisamba, the demon midwife. In court, her defense was shocking. She argued she was doing the parents a favor. She claimed they were the ones who abandoned their children, and she was merely a victim of circumstance. Astonishingly, the court showed a degree of leniency. She was sentenced to just 8 years in prison, and it was appealed down to 4. Miyuki Ishikawa's case exposed a dark intersection of societal desperation and individual greed. A quiet horror that unfolded not in dark alleys, but in the supposed safety of a hospital. For our final, and perhaps most disturbing story, we journey to the United States. To the town of Clementine, Florida, in the early 1900s. This is the story of the Williamson family, a case that blurs the line between a single killer and a syndicate of death. The family, led by a matriarch and her 2 sons, ran a small, isolated farm. They appeared to be simple, hard-working folk, but beneath the surface, they operated twisted and lucrative enterprise. They would lure itinerant workers, drifters, and travelers to their farm with promises of work and lodging. These individuals, often with no family or connections to report them missing, would simply vanish. The Williamsons would murder them, steal their belongings, and dispose of the bodies on their vast property. They had a system. The victims were often poisoned at the dinner table or attacked in their sleep. Their methods were efficient and ruthless. For years, disappearances in the area were noted but never connected. It was just assumed that these transient men had moved on. The family's reign of terror only came to an end when one potential victim grew suspicious and managed to escape, alerting the authorities. When police finally raided the farm, they uncovered a house of horrors. They found personal effects from dozens of missing persons and began unearthing human remains buried all over the property. The exact number of victims was never confirmed, but estimates ranged from 20 to over 40 people. What makes the Williamson case so uniquely terrifying is the familial aspect. This wasn't the act of one lone, disturbed individual. It was a coordinated, family-run business where murder was the product. The cold, methodical nature of their crimes, committed together as a family unit, presents a chilling portrait of shared psychopathy that is almost unparalleled in the annals of true crime. Joseph Vacher, the wandering killer of the French countryside. Miyuki Ishikawa, the demon midwife of post-war Japan. The Williamson family who turned their farm into a graveyard. These are just a few of the forgotten monsters of history. Their stories are a chilling reminder that the famous names we know are just the tip of the iceberg. The darkness they represent can be found anywhere, in any era, sometimes in the most unexpected of guises. They prove that true evil doesn't always seek a spotlight. Sometimes it thrives in the shadows, waiting to be forgotten. What other unknown horrors are still lurking in the unwritten pages of history? Thanks for joining us on this journey into the dark. If you found this unsettlingly fascinating, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the unknown. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Stay safe and stay curious.